Thank you for being with us today. Bienvenidos. Thank you for coming out to the Central Library today. My name is Celia Avila de Santiago, and I'm the Senior Librarian for the Exploration and Creativity here at the Central Library.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Diaz. I work in the Youth Services Department, and we're here to welcome you this afternoon's LA Made program. El Cine and Ghetto Film School presents a screening of The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez.
Now, before we begin, we'd like to take a moment to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities, our Library Foundation, and our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring LA Made programs to all of you. LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting the immense artistic and performance talent that has developed in the course of the city's eclectic history. If you would like to see more of our amazing programs, please visit our online calendar at lapl.org/events. And for our LA Made programs, visit lapl.org/LA-Made.
We would also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders, past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside on, check out native-land.ca. And just a couple of other housekeeping tips before we begin. Please silence your electronic devices so as to not distract our amazing speakers this afternoon. Also, please take a moment to note the location of exits at the back and side of the auditorium, just in case there's an emergency. If you parked in the garage underneath the library today, you can get your parking ticket validated at the information desk in the main lobby. And parking will only be $1 as long as you parked after 1 p.m. and leave before 5 p.m. You will need to show your library card to receive the validation, and if you don't have one, you can get one at the checkout desk. And please no eating or drinking in the auditorium unless it's bottled water, and the bathrooms are down the hallway to your right if you drank your whole bottle.
And now for our super amazing, awesome program. The Los Angeles Public Library, in partnership with El Cine and Ghetto Film School, is excited to announce a Cinco de Mayo celebration honoring Mexican heritage. Join us for a screening of The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez and short films by Ghetto Film School students, showcasing the diverse cultural tapestry of Los Angeles. After the screening, stay for a Q&A session with film producer and community activist Moctesuma Esparza. And here to kick things off is Mariana da Silva, Executive Director and founder of El Cine.
Hello, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're so excited for this day. This is Chica. She's one of our board members at El Cine. If you're not familiar with El Cine is a 501c3 nonprofit that promotes film education. We have free film workshops all over LA. We hope you'll join us. If you follow us at Somos El Cine, you can see what we have coming up. And we have one free workshop a month, and it can be on anything, any trade within the film industry. So please follow us. If you take any pictures, please tag us today, and we're so glad you're here. I'm going to invite Gloria up here from Ghetto Film School so she can tell you a little bit about Ghetto Film School, and then we will continue with our program. Thank you again for being here.
Hello, thank you everyone for being here and for joining us here on Sunday. My name is Gloria Alvarez, and I'm proud to represent Ghetto Film School. Ghetto Film School is a nonprofit arts organization with a mission to educate, celebrate, and develop the next generation of great storytellers. And we are so happy to be here with you guys today to show you the work of three of those filmmakers. The works that you'll be witnessing are three short films, which were our filmmakers shot in 16mm celluloid, creating these intimate and important stories. And I want to take a moment to, again, say thank you for being here, and thank you to our friends and partners from El Cine for the partnership and for helping us create these opportunities to share our work with our community. And now I would like to introduce our filmmakers who will tell you a little bit about the works that they've created.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diego Medina. I'm one of the alumni of Ghetto Film School, and my film is called Sincerely Lulu. Lulu is my mother, and this is her last letter, I would say, to anybody who's willing to listen to her story and those who can possibly relate in any way. So I would say this is her letter to you all as well. Everything she's wanted to say is on here, so it's raw, so enjoy it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Valeria Almonte Zacarias. I am a GFI's alumni. My film is titled Raspado, and it is one of the many untold stories of undocumented street vendors. The street vendor I focused on, her name is Angelica. She came from Mexico and sells, shaved ice for a living. And hopefully Raspado demonstrates to you that street vendors are more than just street vendors, but there are people with dreams, people with hopes, and people who come here and leave everything behind to make a better living. Thank you.
And our final film is called Tu Toque by Xochitl Garcia, and it's an intimate portrait of Xochitl's grandmother, focusing on exploring the intimacy of touch and the people that we love. So we hope you enjoy these short films, and then we'll see you after for our feature presentation. Thank you.
Cuando yo empecé a vender, es un proceso largo. Tuve que empezar comprando yo los raspados para los otros vendedores que recién empezaban a vender. De ahí fue donde empecé a caminar todos los días a levantar botes. Íbamos desde aquí de La Pico hasta el Parque de las Rosas, caminando y regresando, caminando para recoger botes. Y lo que juntaba de los botes, eso es lo que compraba yo, los raspados para saborear. Pues yo vendo los raspados, empecé con los raspados, de ahí le empecé a meter las mangoneadas y los diablitos. Tengo el sabor de mango, tamarindo, guayaba, coco, fresa, nance, nuez, piña, sandía, mamey, guanábana, maracuyá y pepino. Ok, el raspado es compras la barra de hielo y ya le agregas la miel que el diablito lleva mango y tamarindo. Pero los ingredientes te las puedo dar, son el sal, chile, limón, chamoy y tajín. Son los ingredientes, pero como te digo, mucha gente los hace, tiene los mismos ingredientes, pero no les sale igual porque tal vez no lo hacen con el amor que yo hago en mi trabajo. Ahorita me ubico aquí en la Alvarado y la 12 Street, aquí en Los Ángeles, California. A mí me han ofrecido muchos trabajos de diferentes tipos, pero realmente yo me quedo con mi trabajo porque ese me sacó de apuros desde el principio. Y sí, no te miento, batallé mucho para llegar a donde estoy ahorita, pero todo esfuerzo vale la pena. Cuando yo recién llegué a este país, bueno, yo vine por una meta, ¿verdad? Pero desgraciadamente pasan cosas que uno no se espera en el camino, ¿no? Desgraciadamente, fui secuestrada en este país, fui violada en este país, fui drogada en este país y pensé que nunca iba a volver a ver a mi familia porque estuve 3 meses viviendo en la calle. Eso pasó casi recién llegada de aquí a este país. Yo vine con muchos sueños de construir casa, de comprar terrenos, de trabajar tierras allá en mi lugar de origen. Pero no pude hacerlo. Creo que ahí se fueron muchas ilusiones que yo tenía. Entonces, pero Dios sabe por qué hace las cosas. Yo, como te digo, yo perdoné a las personas que me secuestraron y ya todo quedó en el olvido. Y te digo, sí tenía la ilusión de regresar porque me dejé a mi abuela allá en México. Cuando yo me vine era un 9 de mayo y al día siguiente iba a ser 10 de mayo. Y eso es lo que me destrozó mi corazón. Tal vez quería regresar y abrazarla, aunque sea por última vez, y no pude hacerlo. No pude hacerlo porque no tuve papeles. No tengo los documentos para regresar a mi país. Pero ella sabe. Ella sabe que hice hasta lo imposible. Ella ahorita está con Dios. Ella está con Dios y pude hablar con ella antes de que falleciera. Pude pedirle perdón. De verdad, de todo corazón, agradecerle a mis hijos, a mi David, que es un niño maravilloso que Dios me dio. Y decirles que los amo, a María, que los quiero con toda mi alma, a las chiquitas. Y 1,000,000 de gracias por confiar en mí, por confiar en Angelita Iseri y agradecerles, porque sin los clientes uno no es nada. Gracias a los clientes es que estoy donde estoy ahorita. No importa en qué lugar tú estés, no importa si estés en el piso, porque como yo te digo, yo estuve en el piso, del piso me levanté. Tú pones en tu mente, yo lo puedo hacer. Bueno, mi nombre es Angélica Hernández y yo soy de Oaxaca, soy de un pueblo que se llama Santiago Comaltepec, Ixtlán, Oaxaca. Me siento orgullosa de ser mexicana 100%, que gracias a Dios, gracias al universo, a todos los clientes, gracias a toda la gente que me manda buena vibra. Gracias, gracias y 1,000,000 de gracias.
I'm nervous for a number of reasons. One, this is something that's a part of me that I don't usually share with other people. And two, I just haven't seen her in a while, and I'm nervous that things are gonna feel different.
Okay. Yes. Do you remember the last time we saw each other? Like, when you shake your head.
Oh, yeah.
So, what are you doing?
Well, trying to get off the streets. I'm taking these baby steps because that's all I can call them right now. I'm going from homelessness for a long period of time to going back to who I used to be, the person that's always been in me. Homelessness taught me a lot, because I grew up poor, and so homelessness to me was familiar. Eating off the floor, having to see what I'm gonna eat today was nothing new to me. Thank God I've made great people. A lot of us that are homeless is because we suffer something up here. A lot of us are VAs, people that have been in the war. A lot of people, they think that homeless is because we're lazy. But a lot of us are hardworking people. I've been homeless 10 years. But it's with my alcoholism, it's going to be a year and 2 months since I stopped drinking.
A year?
Yeah. There is hardships, of course, the therapy that I'm going through, the psychiatrist that I'm going through, what I did to you guys. When I lost you guys, my world fell apart. Because to me, you guys still are everything to me. I just said to myself, we're not going to have those days where we used to just watch movies, make s'mores. I mean, I thought about stuff like that. It was a depression, really, really bad depression. And I started pounding. Just because I felt like I wasn't thinking. It would help me deal or cope with the depression that I was feeling, which now I come to comprehend that booze was just making me more sad. Because once I was okay and I wasn't drinking for an hour, I just felt like crap. Like nothing was I gaining from drinking. Why did I continue to drink? Because of the shakes, the withdrawal symptoms. Horrible, sweating. So drunk all the time that I just didn't care. I gave up. But these were battles that I had to deal with on my own, I always used to say, for my children, for my children, for my children. And until I learned on therapy, it's not about your children now. It's about you. Because at the end of the day, your children are gonna see that's my mom. That's who I am. And the only person that can change that is you. So don't use your kids as an excuse. Don't use your kids as a reason. Use yourself for the reason. So I'm learning. I'm barely learning. I'm gonna hit 50. You know, it's like Sarah, my daughter. I don't think she'll ever forget what I told her. She said, "You prefer alcohol more than your children." I said, "Yes, I do. And what?" I shouldn't have said that. You asked me, like, what am I thinking for the future? Is just to have what we used to have. I think about stuff like that. I continue to be the same person I was when we celebrated the holidays, the birthdays. Grandma never believed in celebrating holidays, right? Our Thanksgiving, you know what it was? Top ramen soup. That was her Thanksgiving. So I said, when I have my children, I'm gonna make it a point to celebrate our holidays. Yes or no?
Yes.
I remember one time I was in the hospital, out of so many times, but Tia's like, holidays since you've been in and out of the hospital have never been the same. Yeah. My life wasn't that easy, was it? No, I'm gonna be here for a long time. Yes.
I love you.
I love you too.
When I look at my hands, I see the wrinkles. I see the puncturing creases. When she looks at my hands, when she looks at me, she sees all the good. She sees all the love that I'm capable of. I hope I can learn to view myself from her perspective and mean it when I say that I love me the way she loves me.
Mi nombre es Rufina Castrejón. Híjole, pues, ¿qué puedo decir? Tengo muchos recuerdos. ¿Cómo ha sido? Pues, como un sueño. Yo me quedaba con ellos, los llevaba a la escuela, los iba a recoger y el tiempo se pasó y ahora pues ya son personitas mayores. Tal vez cuando de Dios me mande más vejez, tengo en mi mente que seré correspondida por parte de ustedes, cariñosamente, respetuosamente. No, pues antes me sentía joven, mi pelo me gustaba, pero ahora pues igual también mi pelo me gusta y pues me siento feliz.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, a big round of applause to our filmmakers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again for joining us. My name is Kyle Provencio Reingold, and I'm the Executive Director at Ghetto Film School, Los Angeles. We're gonna now play our incredible film for today, The Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, which we are super excited to celebrate and honor today. It's one of the most historically accurate Westerns of all time, and it's one of the foundational films of Chicano cinema. It's an honor to have Moctesuma Esparza with us today, so we're gonna have a wonderful moderated conversation after, so I hope you stick around, and we look forward to seeing you after the film. Thank you. All right, what an incredible film. My name again is Kyle Provencio Reingold. I'm the Executive Director at Ghetto Film School Los Angeles, and I have the privilege of welcoming to the stage our iconic guest, film producer, activist, and executive producer in studio of the film which you just watched, Moctesuma Esparza. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today to celebrate this movie. Thank you for your contributions to Chicano cinema and this generous gift that you left us with this film. I wanted to start just by a moment of silence and honoring the memory of Robert M. Young, who passed away recently. And also, I believe the last moderated conversation around this film was hosted by Lourdes Portillo, who also passed away recently. And I just wanted to honor their contributions to Latino cinema as well. First off, what an incredible achievement this movie is and how perfectly it holds up in so many different ways. 16mm film, shot with natural light, and such a deep focus and handheld, so many cinematic achievements that were accomplished here. And I just wanted the audience to think about that for a second as we dive into the conversation. So beginning, I just want to say, throughout your career, you've produced a number of significant films that have impacted the representation of Mexican and Mexican-American stories on screen. How have you found success navigating or identifying such stories that intersect the commercial appeal and social prowess?
Well, I had extraordinary mentors, teachers, and the lessons that I took from them is that in order to have success in life, you have to be responsible and willing to accept the responsibility for how other people hear you. In other words, I got people to say yes to me, right? So I have in my career produced over 50 movies, another dozen documentaries, scores of short films. And that only happened because I made a request and the people who heard me were willing to say yes. So that particular lesson that I learned from Fernando Flores in particular, who's a philosopher, a Chilean philosopher, whose work is focused on the power of language. His thesis for his dissertation took the position that language has the power of being an action, right? You make requests, people accept them or decline them, you can make a counter request, and it is in that process that things are achieved, right? So I learned to listen to what the people who could say yes to me needed to hear. That is, I spoke to their listening. And in speaking to their listening, I was able to offer them something that they could support. So this junction that you described of the socially relevant and the commercial success, that intersection is what I spoke to.
And you did it tremendously throughout your career. I mean, one of the questions I had for you was just around how did you find the source material for this film with a pistol in his hands?
By the time that I produced this movie. I had already been a professional producer for 8 or 9 years. I graduated at UCLA with my Master of Fine Arts in 1973, and I got my first producing credit in 1971 with the movie documentary Requiem 29 about Ruben Salazar. And my graduate thesis film a few years later was Cinco Vidas, and it was fortunate to win an Emmy. And the Requiem 29 was recently inducted into the Library of Congress Film Registry. So I've been blessed, right, that the work that I did spoke to a yearning, a need, a suffering, a complaint, and a seeking for justice, and also a stand for independence and self-reliance, right? So all of that is wrapped together. And I produced a movie called Only Once in a Lifetime, which was my first feature film in 1976. And I lost my shirt. The movie didn't earn any of its money back. All the investors lost their money, and I almost lost my house. And I had, as a fairly young man, learned the lessons of finance and sought to understand how capitalism works to be able to use it. And so the lesson that I took away from the failure of Only Once in a Lifetime was that I had not thought about how to market the movie and who the audience was and how I was going to reach it. So after that failure, I decided that I needed to find works of literature that were already known, that had support, that gave me the opportunity to promote the film based on its literary source. And I had known of With This Pistol in His Hand by Américo Paredes, and that was one of 5 books that I sought to acquire the rights to. I went to Raúl Izaguirre, to the National Council of La Raza, and those that were watching may have seen that he got a credit here, an acknowledgement. And I asked Raúl for help. He had provided me $5,000 to buy film and develop it for Requiem 29 during the moratorium. While East LA was burning, I went to him, and he gave me $5,000, and Esteban Torres gave me another $5,000, and with that, we bought the film to be able to make that documentary. So I went to him again, and I told him that unless we changed our image in Hollywood, that our children would continually be subject to this subversive attack on our identity, on our self-worth, on our image, on our very being, which is what Hollywood has done since its very beginnings. He understood immediately, and he took me to the Endowment of the Humanities and got me a grant for $25,000. This is in 1979. And I used that money to convene a group of historians at UCLA and literary professors to help me identify the iconic literature that represented our culture that could be the basis for movies, that would have an audience, that would have the hook for me to market them, and that I could speak to in terms of raising the money that would be required. And so we convened the group, and they recommended to me the books that I suggested that they recommend to me. And that was With a Pistol in His Hand, The Milagro Beanfield War, Chicano by Richard Vasquez, and a couple of other books. And so I did get 2 of them made. I got With a Pistol in His Hand made, and I got the Milagro Beanfield War made. So, not a bad batting average in Hollywood.
I mean, and like I mentioned at the beginning, this was one of the foundational films when we think about Chicano cinema, and just mentioning the rough history that we've had in Hollywood, I think that's what's so important about this film, is that it challenges the notions of what is a Western, what perspective the Western is told from, and then challenging all the stereotypes, specifically this caricature of a greaser, who then becomes the bandito, who then becomes a hero in this movie, which you've done so incredibly and is so timeless that this is one of the first presentations of a noble Mexican Chicano, in this region, and all the challenges that come with the justice system that is being built in America and who it works for. So, and that holds up so relevant into today. It's incredible. One parallel that I've observed in the history of Chicano cinema is the root conflict that arises from a misunderstanding, such as in the film The Lawless, or Zoot Suit, or here with Gregorio Cortez and Boone's character. And I'm curious for you, how do you feel today that Mexican and Mexican American people have been misunderstood in the history of cinema?
Well, there's been ebbs and flows. I mean, certainly it was very clear that Hollywood was talking about Mexicans for about 50 years. Today, you don't hear Hollywood say Chicano or Mexican American. We're now Latinos or Latinx or other identities, which I understand the impulse for these new identities, right? Because everyone needs to be able to have an identity that they are committed to, that they recognize, that supports their identity. But the outcome has indeed been the obliteration, the erasing of being Mexican, right? And fundamentally, that's who we are. That's who we have been called, right? Since the intervention of the white slavers from Tennessee and South Carolina who arrived in Texas in 1828. They started to come in with the stated purpose of turning Texas into a slave state, right? And
Destiny, the Treaty of Guadalupe.
Yes, that was going there. Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which is mentioned in the Milagro Beanfield War, if you remember. I have Amarante Cordova in his tent mention that. Where we lose half of the Republic of Mexico and we become citizens of the United States, but not with rights, only in name. So yes, there is a challenge for us in Hollywood, both in reference to our own self-identity, our participation, and our ability to have agency to create our own image. And that was my goal, to create that agency.
And it's inspired generations. It's one of the reasons why I sit on this stage today, aspiring to be a film producer and be a community activist as well in that lineage of do it yourself by any means necessary. It's just astounding to me what you were able to accomplish. And yeah, there's so much that I can dive into.
Well, I will acknowledge I had no roadmap. There were no role models for me. There was no one I was following.
And I mean, just so you spoke to it, I mean, I think I felt the same way around the erasure of Mexican-American Chicanos in film, and how that specificity is so important to recognizing yourself and having that audience and speaking to that audience. And I'm going to get to that later with the business that you've built with Mayan Cinemas. But I just think that intentionality goes such a long way, knowing who you're speaking to, knowing the source material, and really having that tie into the Chicano experience, which resonates today with the corrido and the marriage of the Western. So looking back at the production of the Ballad of Gregorio Cortez, what were some of the biggest challenges given the size of the budget and the vision from Bob Young, and how did you convince a company to finance a Chicano Western after yeah, you talked a little bit about how you got into finance, but by convincing people, but a little bit about the distribution and marketing. You know, where did the film live? How did you get it out into the world?
Well, after I got the grant, I hired Victor Villaseñor to write the script. And I hired Victor because he had proven to me that he had a really uncanny ability to get people to talk to him. And he was an extraordinary researcher based on the work that he had done in writing the biography of his parents, Reign of Gold, and another book called Macho. So I sent him to Texas, and he wandered around Texas talking to anyone he could. Somehow he ended up talking to the presiding judge in Gonzales, Texas. And that presiding judge, who was the judge in the movie, by the way, it's the actual character, had the diary of Frank Fly. And he had been waiting for decades for somebody to come ask him about Gregorio Cortez. And so when Victor showed up and said, I'm here because I'm working on a script about Gregorio Cortez, the judge took him in and spent time with him and gave him that incredible document, which allowed us to capture and to portray a full portrayal of what happened from every point of view. The structure of the movie is the structure of Rashomon.
I was going to get to that. Yeah, it's 100% Rashomon by Kurosawa. That is the Chicano version of that, absolutely.
I saw Rashomon when it first came out in the early 60s here in LA.
Getting to that truth, the essential truth.
Yeah, no, I was a film student. Yeah. And I went to Toho La Brea and, feasted on Kurosawa's work, as well as all the other auteur filmmakers from Europe.
Sure.
Fellini and Truffaut and all of them. So yeah, I had a pretty strong film history and education. I didn't know when I was going to them. I was in the 10th grade. I didn't know I was going to be a film producer, but I was training for it. Mm-hmm. So you asked me how I got it financed. The movie cost $1.25 million. That was a lot of money in 1979.
Totally.
If you do a net present value, it's about $5 million today. Now, what you saw on the screen would be very difficult to capture for $5 million even today.
That's what I was thinking. I was going to ask you, how do you think that would be achievable today?
For $20 million. At least. At least 20 million.
Sure.
Because I've made movies that are higher budget, right? So Selena in 1996, 97 cost 24 million. Gettysburg in 1990 cost 15 million. That was an incredibly low budget. That was an achievement similar to what Gregorio Cortez is. So I did develop a skill of being able to create high quality film at a very disciplined low budget.
It's something that's so inspiring to myself, and I know to our filmmakers. It's something that we study in film school now, thinking about how to have those low budget sensibilities, but be able to have high quality stories. And
well, you have to have the right partners. Right? When I went to go see Zoot Suit, and I saw Edward James Olmos' performance as El Pachuco at the Mark Taper Forum, and it was, I think, the first week that it went out. And I asked to see Eddie. I didn't know him, but he was gracious, and he invited me backstage into the green room, his dressing room. And at that point, I told him that I was a filmmaker, I was a producer, and that I wanted to produce a movie about Gregorio Cortez, and that I wanted him to portray him. So I offered him the role right then and there. I had some credibility. I had already been nominated for an Academy Award. I had already won an Emmy. I'd already won Golden Globe nominations and Cine Golden Eagles. So a commitment to quality is part of the success formula that I had used. So, every single first effort that I made was critically and artistically significant. And that's what I set out to do. That was my intent, right? So picking the right partners is fundamental. So I asked Eddie, who do you want to direct you? I asked him, and he told me Robert Young. And so I told him I don't know who he is, and he said, go watch Alambrista.
An incredible film. For all those who haven't seen Alambrista, it's a fantastic double bill.
And when I saw that, I understood that this man had a unique and extraordinary capability to get into other people's skins, to see the world through other cultures. And then I saw Nothing But a Man, which he directed. And is a seminal movie. It's an astonishing movie. Again, from the point of view of an African-American man. So I saw in him an extraordinary artist. And so again, I said yes. And then Robert Young took me to his brother, Irwin Young, who committed to help me and help the production by giving me a great deal at Duart Laboratories and guaranteeing that our shooting in Super 16 would result in an extraordinary, beautiful blow up to 35 millimeter, because that's not easy. And they also then led me to Michael Husman. And if you looked at the credits, I shared a producer credit with him. So Michael Husman had just finished producing Ragtime, which was a huge Hollywood movie, very successful. And he is someone who could guarantee the physical production, the integrity and the quality of the physical production, and bring crew people who were at the top of their professional careers. Everyone who worked on this movie did so because they were committed to it and were extraordinarily capable people. And Reynaldo Villalobos, right, he was the DP. He agreed to do this outside of the union, which is why he got a visual consulting credit, not a DP credit. There is no DP credit here. Wow. So it's picking the right partners, understanding what your goal is, and figuring out what does it take to achieve it.
Incredible collaborators and such a tremendous vision to be able to trust in those partners and have that trust, that close-knit of collaborators to be able to work with. And I think about this story and how important it is, especially for Chicano folklore and stories that I'm interested in telling, especially oral histories. When we don't see ourselves in history books, or we don't see ourselves represented in these educational spaces or in the archives, these are the films that we turn to see our representation, to see our history, to know about ourselves. How important do you think capturing and turning those oral histories into art for future generations to enjoy and learn about themselves?
That is a rhetorical question. Does it need an answer?
No.
Okay.
So I'm just curious to, let's see. So I'm going to dive into Mayan cinemas for a quick second. I want to talk about what you're currently up to. When did the inspiration for investing in building a movie theater business arise? And how did you pitch the idea to investors and scale the operation to what Mayan Cinemas is today?
When I produced the Milagro Beanfield War, and it was Universal Studios that put up the money, I went with them with a proposal that they allow me to take the movie and have benefit premieres in 20 cities. And it was a huge cast. And so I broke up the cast into 4 groups, and we went to those 20 cities in 1 week, 10 days. And I went to each town and I looked for a nonprofit, educationally oriented partner who wanted to host the movie, that they could raise money to fund scholarships, and in turn, create a big buzz, a big promotional event so that everyone would know that the movie was coming. So in '87, I went to all these cities and I looked for these partners and I found them. And then I looked for venues where we could have the events. And I found that there were no first-run quality movie theaters in any Latino community, urban community in the United States. There were none. Now, I grew up in Boyle Heights, and I could walk to the Brooklyn Theater, the Monterrey Theater, and the Unique Theater, and there was another theater on First Street that I forget. But there were movie theaters in every barrio in the United States. In the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, there were as many as 700 individual screens in barrios across the United States. And the biggest part of the earning income of Azteca Films, Churubusco Films out of Mexico, and other movies that came in from Argentina in particular, was the United States Latino Spanish-speaking movie-going audience. It was a big business. But with mainstream movie theaters that were playing Hollywood films abandoning these urban single-screen venues, going to the suburbs and building multiplexes, the urban cinemas were abandoned. They became flea markets, parking lots, churches, and other various uses. So when I realized that, and so instead here in Los Angeles, we had the premiere at Universal City Walk, right? And likewise, we found big venues where we could have a red carpet event. 10 years later, for Selena, I did the same thing. I went to Warner Brothers and I said, listen, I did this for Milagro Beanfield War, let me do it again. And again, I went out. I didn't do 20 because I almost killed myself. I couldn't handle that many airplane flights that much. But we did do 10 premieres. And again, there were no theaters. The few second-run theaters that I found 10 years earlier, they were all closed. And it was at that moment that the idea crossed my mind. This is in '97. There's an opportunity here. And there were 2 motivations that pushed me to actually do it. One, I watched Magic Johnson. And I saw him build theaters in African-American communities. And the CEO of his company and I were on a board of directors together. And so, I got to know him and we talked. And I found out what his business model was. And then second, I produced the movie, The Disappearance of Garcia Lorca, that Andy Garcia starred in, right? That focused on the Spanish poet who was killed by the fascist, who was assassinated by the fascist. And then his murder was hidden, right? And his body was never found. And it was an expensive movie. It cost $14 million. And it's a gorgeous movie if you haven't seen it. And it has a very strong cast. And I sold the rights in the United States to Sony, who also ended up buying the rights for about half of the international markets. And in the contract, I was sophisticated enough and had enough experience that I required that they have a minimum platform theatrical release in New York and LA. And I had the expectation that if the movie did well, that they would then broadly release it. The movie did well. At opening weekend, it did like $29,000, which is a lot of money for a weekend for a single screen.
Absolutely.
It was.
Yeah.
Even today, it's not bad.
Sure.
But in '97, it was damn good. And Sony said, sorry, we're not going to open it up. We're going to go straight to video, because we're going to make more money going straight to video. And so it was a shock, and I was very disappointed. And that gave me the impulse that we needed a different solution. I had previously developed, built, owned, and operated a cable TV system, Buena Vision Cable TV. I had 14,000 customers. This was in East LA and Boyle Heights in Colton, California. Right, and so I'm the very first Chicano who built and operated. I was an MSO, right? And, you know, I built cable that passed the home I grew up in. And I built a studio, public access, and there are people today in Hollywood who got their training and start at my studio. So I knew that I could do it, because I had already done it once before. And I saw the model, the business model of Magic Johnson, and I decided that I didn't want to follow his model. He basically licensed his name. He didn't run his own theaters. They were run by a Canadian company. But it had his brand, right, and that served his purpose. So I instead, as I did with cable TV, I built my own organization, right? So my own capacity, right? Because there were a few cable TV giants who said, hey, you've got this franchise, you got a franchise in East LA, give it to us, you can own 20% and just clip coupons. And I turned that down, and I raised the capital to build that system. So I did the same thing. It took me a while. It took me until 2001. And I went all over the Southwest with the idea of building Maya Cinemas. And I had some early successes in that I had to learn the business of real estate. And I had to learn the business of how you own real estate, how you develop it, or how you're a tenant and how you lease. And there is a Maya Cinema in San Antonio, Texas, where a competitor stole my idea, and it's in the South Side, it's still there. And there is a Maya Cinemas in Southgate, here in Southern California, right? And again, I had developed it, came up with the idea, and I got double-crossed by a developer and not supported by the city council. Wow. And so they built a movie theater there, and they put the name Maya Cinemas on it, and you can go there and see it. But having learned those lessons, my next venture out, I learned redevelopment law, and I bought the land downtown where I wanted to go next. I bought the land in downtown Bakersfield and downtown Salinas, California. And I used then that law to have the city negotiate with me to provide the subsidies that I needed and the entitlements and the zoning to become the developer of my own movie theater and my own landlord.
Incredible. Can we have a round of applause for that? You've built your own studio, you've built your own platforms, your own cable network, your own distribution chain. It's
yes.
Like I said, in this generation, I think more than ever, we need that attitude, that sensibility to build it, and they will come, and knowing where there's a lack of resources or accessibility. And that's a big part of Ghetto Film School as well, is providing undergraduate film program, the quality of an undergraduate film program for free to 14 to 19-year-olds. And so really thinking about that mission it just resonates so deeply with us. So
Well, that's how I ended up being a producer, is I created a film program at UCLA. Are you familiar with ethno-communications?
yes, we had Charles Burnett come and join us at Ghetto Film School recently.
Well, Charles was my TA. I hired him. And later I hired him to direct a movie. He directed Selma Lord Selma, which I produced.
He said how close you guys were, and I just we can't wait to have Moctesuma come and speak with us. So we're doing that today. So again, it's such a
Well, he is my elder. He was my teacher, but I'm responsible for having hired him.
Incredible.
And ethno-communications, right? So the MECHA, at that point, Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, we had all been involved together to support the walkouts occurring in March of '68. And I assume you know that I was indicted, faced life in jail twice.
The Chicano 13.
Yeah, I was one of the 13, and I was one of the Biltmore 6. And I was a fugitive for a while, and I was on trial for more than 3 years. So while that was going on, nothing stopped. We continued to organize. And I got arrested again. I was arrested 3 times. And we were committed at that point that we had the opportunity to make change. So MECHA took on that we should go to each of the departments at the university that we were interested in to open them up, to bring in faculty, to bring in diverse students. So the law school was targeted. The history department was targeted. And someone said to me, why don't you go after the film school? And there was a professor there, African-American, Eliseo Taylor, who then recruited me to go on to a study group, a campus-wide research on the impact of negative images from Hollywood on communities of color. And the recommendation that came out of that report was that there needed to be more diversity in the film school and in the School of Journalism. So I took on, with Eliseo's support, writing a curriculum. Now, I was a sophomore. I was, at that point, 20 years old. So I wrote a curriculum called Ethno-Communications, and I recruited 12 students, along with Eliseo, 4 Chicanos, 4 Asian Americans, 4 Native Americans, and 4 African Americans. And then we organized a sit-in and took over the dean's office until the program was approved. And that program continued for about 10 years. And there were more people of color, more Chicanos in film school 50 years ago than there are now.
Absolutely. I went to NYU, and I had to explain, when I said that I'm a Chicano, I had to explain the identity to other people, and it was just eye-opening, because I grew up, my family's from Lincoln Heights, my mom went to UCLA, my grandpa went to Lincoln. I grew up, adjacent.
Those are all the places I went.
Yeah.
I went to Lincoln and UCLA.
I shot my thesis from NYU at Lincoln. And it was so important to me to bring the film back. I told the story about my grandfather, who was a Latin jazz musician. And Lincoln was an iconic music program.
Eddie Cano.
My uncle played with Eddie Cano. My grandpa played with Bobby Montez. He was the upright bass player for Bobby Montez and played at the $1 Million and all around Los Angeles.
Did they play with Leon? Ruben Leon?
I don't think so.
He was the piano player at the Grand View in Chinatown.
Okay. Yeah, my grandpa probably, he was on Crescendo Records, so he recorded with Gene Norman and
I played with him.
Wow.
I was in a rock and roll band back then.
So one of the stories that I'm developing, and I've been working for the last several years, and I'm in the process of developing, is a story about Willie G and the Midnighters, but specifically through the perspective of Willie. And
Cannibal and Headhunters lived across the street from me. And Carlos Rincon directly across the street from me, who was with the Glendells.
And this intersection, this music history is so, again, there's so many oral histories of those bands and those, the music that has, you know, existed in all of family events, but ultimately those stories haven't been translated into narrative fictional films. La Bamba obviously is one of them, and Selena is one of them. And it's incredible that those films were made, and we have so many more to make. And so, again, it's just so inspiring that you were able to identify these stories and bring them into fruition. And I just encourage all those who are with us today that are filmmakers and watching this in the future to continue that.
Well, as I said, a commitment to quality and picking the right collaborators is absolutely necessary, right? Selena was a success because I had the good sense to hire Gregory Nava, right, who was my classmate at UCLA. And he tells the story that when I used to walk down the halls there, he was afraid of me, right, because I had a brown beret and I was always angry and organizing sit-ins and being arrested. But Gregory is a very talented guy, and he was the right choice. So in each case, that's vital.
Absolutely. I think we have time for maybe one more question. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, we'll go back to the film just for 1 second and close out. But where should I go with this? Eddie Olmos, I mean, what a performance. Like you said, all of these collaborators that have contributed to this film. I mean, he gives an incredible performance, but he's also an incredible horseman.
Yeah, that was him. There's no stunt double. He did all that.
Did he train to ride beforehand, or what was that? I mean,
he trained while we were prepping the movie, and he's an incredible athlete. You know, he just has the physicality that allowed him this amazing portrayal. I mean, he got that horse to go on the ground. That was not scripted. That happened. And he went with it, right? And him holding the horse's head and being as close and intimate with that yegua, right? It wasn't a horse, it was a yegua that he was riding, is all him. That's all to his credit.
That's incredible. I just want to keep talking to you. Do we have time for one more question? One more? Okay, fantastic. There's so many themes in this film that are dealt with, and I just want to, maybe there's an observation, maybe it's not even a question, but I just think of the importance of the perspective that is dealt with in this film between the idea of emotions, or the emotional versus the ideas of justice. And what was the script process like collaborating to really situate the empathy with Gregorio? I mean, there's so many beats in this. One that resonates deeply with me is when he turns over his pistols. There's so many decisions that he makes that...
What breaks his will to escape is learning that his family is in jail.
That's right. That beat when he's in the cantina.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all true. Right. He allowed himself to be captured. That's true. And he knew that if he didn't give away his guns, they'd kill him.
Right.
Right. But having received the guns, those sheriffs and Texas Rangers knew they could not answer the question if they shot him. Right. I can tell you a story that after the premiere of the movie and the movie played in San Antonio, a grandchild of Gregorio Cortez came to me and told me that the family changed their name out of the persecution and shame that they experienced, and that he was so grateful that this movie and what we had done had given them back their name.
That's so powerful. A round of applause for Moctesuma Esparza. I think that concludes our conversation for today, but I wanted to say again, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your contributions to our history, to our shared narrative, to the history of our representation in cinema, and to inspiring generations of filmmakers who are following in your lineage.
Well, I'm not done yet.